David Wilhite. I'm the president of Quintron Systems, and we're located in Santa Maria, California, which is about an hour north of Santa Barbara, right on the coast. Well, Quintron actually goes back to 1970 when we were incorporated. The history of the company is actually in support of rocket launch operations at Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is right at our back door. And so the company actually started out with personnel on the base supporting voice communications and all sorts of systems involved in rocket launch. So that's really where the company started from. And beyond that, we've moved into, of course, as you can tell here, access control systems and other sorts of systems that we integrate for our customers. Quintron Systems has actually got 3 divisions now. The history of the company starts with what we call the telecom division, and we produce high-end, multi-channel, control room type voice systems. So these are used in rocket launch pads and things like that. The access control division, security systems division, produces access control used at many of the government centers and that sort of thing around. And then the 3rd division is integrated systems. They provide cabling infrastructure, computer networks, phones, that sort of thing, principally for the schools in the area. The majority of our markets are what people would term government installations and locations, but in actuality, the majority of our real customers are the commercial people that operate on military or government bases. So people like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, United Launch Alliance. The access control really is focused historically on the federal space, intelligence agencies, that sort of thing. We're moving into the commercial world, so totally away, but even there, we're probably more focused on institutions, larger corporations, those kinds of entities. Again, integrated systems principally sells to schools and local government installations, that sort of thing. So really, we're pretty much all oriented on the military, the government side. Well, one of the things that we're doing most importantly is with our DICES product line. DICES is D-I-C-E-S, Digital Integrated Communication Electronics System. The product line actually started in the late 70s with what we now know as DICES 1, which was actually designed and built to support rocket launch, space shuttle in particular on the West Coast. We moved into DICES 2 and 3, which were very updated technologies in the late 80s into the 90s. Starting about 6 years ago, we updated that product line, which is what we call TDM-based, time division multiplex, hardware-based, plug-in cards, chassis, with a completely new clean sheet design. That's being used at many large installations. The premier one is US Stratcom in Omaha. We took that basic design from the software side and packaged it into a pure server-based solution that we call DICES VoIP, Voice over IP. And that's really the leading edge technology that we are finding the most interest in from almost all of our customers at this point. Well, as I said, we took the software solutions from our hardware-based product, bundled them, not exactly that simple, but bundled them together to produce a server-based product. So the older style technology, which depends upon big rack-mounted chassis and plug-in cards, is totally replaced with nothing but a server. We can supply that in a special fault-tolerant design, so the reliability of the system is as equal to the larger, more expensive hardware-based solutions, and yet it's just a server. It scales very readily. The client side of this, that is the fellows that are sitting at a console, either doing a rocket launch or managing a security operations center, whichever one is applicable, they simply have a bit of software on their computer, a USB headset, and a GUI that lets them interoperate with all of the audio assets that are connected to the system. So from the perspective of the equipment that's required, it could not be simpler. Because of that, and because you're just buying software, of course, the price point can be significantly more competitive than a hardware-based solution. There's just no comparison in that regard. And they don't have to come back for a big expensive software upgrade. We basically send them a new license file. It turns on that feature in the software and they're up and running. It's just that simple. The other side is all of our code is written in Java, so you can load it up on about any sort of computer you want. Again, they don't have to replace a bunch of equipment just to run our user station. They can use what's already there in almost every case. Well, as we've been talking, our historical customer base is places like Rocket Launch and the Air Force Stratcom Command Center. What we're finding is that, especially with large corporations, infrastructure, oil, gas, the power utilities, these folks have traditionally depended upon radios and telephones and that sort of thing, and yet in today's world they need to be able to manage that situation much more interactively. And so with the DICE's VoIP solution, without replacing a whole bunch of equipment or adding a whole lot of expense, they can provide a user the capability to bring up radios and telephones and create real-time conferences and respond to an emergency situation in a much more integrated fashion than they ever could before. And I think there's a lot of people on the commercial side that are now seeing the need to talk to their local agencies, police, fire, highway patrol, all of those people in a much more cohesive fashion. And our solution will allow them to do that inherently.